Trick. He says, thanks again for taking the time to respond. You're welcome. I watched the entire video and thought it conversational, a good thing. I don't have time to address every point you made last time, at least right now, so I'm going to make a more quick comment and perhaps elaborate later if I find the time, if that's okay, of course. Okay. I think if I were to summarize this video, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but you think taxes should be removed and people should become rational enough that they will voluntarily do what's best or rational for the entire population, such as pay the right fees that will help others who can't afford to, etc., and if they are really rational, equalize their wealth and work for the sake of society. More or less, as far as I think taxes should have never started in the first place. That's what I'm saying. Taxes never were justified. As far as being removed, I mean, now we find ourselves in a dilly of a pickle. I'm not saying people should just stop paying their taxes, because that would create a problem in and of itself. I mean, like I say, it's just so many people. I mean, 7 billion of us, that's just retarded. There's no reason to have that many people. You know, that's the problem. We just keep reproducing, even though, you know, we got machines that can do the labor. That's the thing, the laborers are just reproducing like, they think they have a right to, because they're grateful to their almighty God. But yeah, I mean, taxes have been around forever. I mean, I think in the Old Testament they called it a tithe, right? 10% went to the priests, had to do it, or, you're blaspheming God or some silly crap. Of course, the priests lived a high life. Everybody else was, they weren't working. They were just doing whatever, God's work. It's kind of like what we got going now. Anyhow, yeah, a rational society really wouldn't need taxes. Anyhow, to such I would absolutely agree. Taxes wouldn't be needed in a utopia of rational and caring people who understand every nuance to what makes a society run smoothly. I mean, moreover, rational society would dwindle to nothing, because a rational being wouldn't reproduce, wouldn't bring a person into this stupid existence. I mean, we struggle and sweat and bleed trying to stay alive, and then we die. Why bring someone into that situation? It's just retarded. Taxes are only needed because people aren't rational enough, aren't concerned enough, aren't intelligent enough, don't have the education to distribute properly, or don't want to spend their own time to do the right things, including figuring out the most rational things to fund. Well, again, a rational society would, at a minimum, be stable. Don't increase the amount of people. Keep the amount of people at a stable level. That would be, better than just growing. We got to keep growing. No, we don't. We should reduce the numbers. Anyhow. But sure, I'll give you that if everyone was rational, educated on all events that help society, and wanted to do what was rational for the sake of society, that taxes wouldn't be a requirement. Right. The fact that you suggest someone should be paying a fee for others who can't afford such a number of assessments near the end means that you simply must recognize that if people are not rational enough to do that, taxes are needed. Well, again, the basis of law is doing something to somebody else without their consent, and that's what taxes are. It's not consensual. So we're violating a fundamental principle of society. Don't take from others, but that's what taxes are, taking without consent. It's just, I'm trying to be rational here. Rational doesn't mean makes you feel good. Rational is just rational. And I am far more pessimistic than you in regard to people voluntarily doing anything. Well, again, that's not the point. I mean, a rational person wouldn't bring another person into existence in the first place. And that's why we're having so many problems. It's because people just keep reproducing when they shouldn't be. So yeah, getting majority of people to understand you don't have a right to reproduce. That's a tough sell. Apparently, that's not how things work. We can get people to understand that socialism and paying taxes is important, but I don't think we could get people to actually volunteer such. Well, then so be it, I guess. But the fundamental principle is consent, right? You don't do something to somebody else without their consent. But that's what taxes are. I mean, if people just understand, I mean, you know, I'm getting aid from the state, so I'm effectively taking from others via taxes. But what else am I going to do? I mean, I can't live on the amount of money I'm making. I mean, you know, the state says, oh, minimum wage. You know, that's enough for a family to live on, but it's not. But yet, people in the state are making, like, you know, again, those judges are making good money. If you know, if they're going to set a minimum wage, then everybody in the government should get that minimum wage. Anyhow, going on. But again, voluntarism assumes that the people actually own the wealth that they have to begin with. That's the first mistake. Ownership rights are a misnomer when one person doesn't deserve more than another. That's true, but still, where's the state's ownership rights? How do they get the ownership rights to take from other people? It's talking about fundamental principles. That's in the Arizona Constitution. It talks about fundamental principles. I guess the fundamental principle is that they get to take. They get to violate fundamental principles. That, I think, is the rational thing. Well, you know, again, people are just bringing people into existence, and they can't afford to do it. If you can afford to do it, at least, you know, you have some justification. Well, you know, at least I can afford to have a kid. But if you can afford to have a kid, you can afford to help somebody else instead. So just procreation is not rational. That's the fundamental. I think I've said before, all philosophical roads lead to antinatalism. You know, I was an anarchist before I was an antinatalist, and the two are not mutually exclusive. Anarchism says, you know, fundamentally, there's no one has authority to tell somebody else to do. But when you procreate, you're basically telling that person you created, you will work. You needed to come into existence so that you can have needs like everybody else. It's just retarded. You know, that, I think, is the rational thing that you must account for when you say taxation is theft. Well, I mean, if you're going to... The word theft is taking from somebody else without their consent. That's what it's all about, consent. And taxation is not consensual. The word theft implies that such a thing is owned to begin with. Well, exactly, but what gives the state the right to take that which they don't own? You're saying that they own it somehow, that they have a right to my work. You're putting the burden on me when the burden's on the state. That's the largest mistake I'm seeing. I agree. That's where we're butting heads. Where does the state get the right to take things without consent? I mean, that's That's where I'm going with this. Sure, if we can get people to voluntarily distribute wealth that they shouldn't own to begin with, that works well, but it's not happening with the irrational mentality that exists. But again, you know, if it's, is the state rational? You know, am I giving my money to rational people and they're going to do the rational thing with it? No, because more than likely the people in the that work, you know, in the power, not the basic government worker, the people with power, they're the ones that are irrational. That's you know, we're going back and forth, and I think the burden is on the state. The burden is on the state to show that they have a rational authority to take what isn't theirs. I mean, you're saying it is theirs, but then why is it imposed? Why isn't it consensual? Catch you later, good sir. All right, well, yeah. Talk to you later.